Today we are going to learn how to make a drawing in Photoshop look like a layered paper art. It doesn't look quite as good as the real live layered paper art, which can be amazing, but it's something worth keeping in your toolbox. Let's get started by creating a new document. I'm creating a 16 by 16 inch document to start. We're just going to test out the basic effect with this document. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a background color using the Paint Bucket tool. Now I'm going to add a new layer and grab the Pen tool. In this case, I'm going to use the Curvature Pen tool, but you can use the Standard Pen tool or the Freeform Pen tool as well. Before I start, I'll double check that the Pen tool is set to Shape up here in this dropdown. Now I can start clicking on anchor points around my canvas, as the Pen tool starts creating a curved shape. It's curved because I'm using the Curvature Pen tool. To complete your shape, you need to bring your anchor points all the way back to where you started. Now that I've got my shape, I want to give it its own color. And that'll be my first paper layer. We'll add in the effects after we make more layers. Go ahead and add a new layer and use your pen tool to make another shape, staying inside your previous shape. Give your new shape a new color. I'm just alternating between these two different purples, but you can use any colors. Let's make a couple more layers following the same process of using our pen tool to create a shape inside the previous shape. Great, now we have 4 layers of our so-called paper. To create the effect, we are going to click on the top layer and then click on the FX at the bottom of the Layers panel. Choose Drop Shadow. The Layer Style window opens up with Drop Shadow selected. We are going to use 2 drop shadows. Don't worry if yours is only showing 1 so far. On the first one, I like to have the opacity high. Go ahead and play around with the distance, spread, and size until you get something that looks good to you. You may need to move this layer style window to make sure that you can see the layer that you're working on as you make changes. Once you've got the first drop shadow set, let's add a second one. If you don't see a second drop shadow line, click the plus icon next to the first drop shadow line. This will add another drop shadow. Now on the second drop shadow, I'm going to use global light so that the 2 shadows make sense together. I usually put the opacity down on the second drop shadow and then give it more distance, spread, and size. Once you're happy with your shadows, click OK. Now we are going to very easily apply the same settings to our other paper layers. Right-click on the layer we just worked on and select Copy Layer Style. Select all of the other paper layers and then right-click on one of them and select Paste Layer Style. In just that one click, your drop shadow settings have been applied to all of your so-called paper layers. And now our finished product is a 3-dimensional looking stack of cutout papers. Now we're going to use this same technique to create our fake layered paper art. Let's go to File, New to create a new document. I'm going to stick with the 16 by 16 inch document again. I'll start by using the Paint Bucket to create a background. This is going to be the sky, so I'll choose a light blue. Now I'm going to create a new layer and draw some mountains. For the first one, I'll use the Freeform Pen tool. Again, make sure it's set to Shape in the dropdown up here. Then I'll give it a brownish gray color. I'll draw my mountain and connect it all around by going below my canvas. With the Freeform Pen tool, you can kind of click and drag to draw. Remember to bring your pen tool all the way back to where you started to complete your shape. Now let's add another layer for our next mountain. Make sure your new layer is on top of your other layers. This one I'm going to use the Standard Pen tool. This will create sharper edges. I'll set it to a slightly darker brown and begin drawing some anchor points. Make sure to complete the shape by bringing your pen back to the starting point. Now we aren't done, but let's go ahead and add our drop shadows to see how this is looking so far. Click on one of your mountain layers and then click the FX icon at the bottom of the Layers panel. Select Drop Shadow. And now we have our layer style window where we can see the opacity, distance, spread, and size of our drop shadow. They should be set to our most recent settings from our practice drawing. And we can click on the checkbox next to the second drop shadow to activate that one. Remember, if you don't have a second one in your list, just click on the plus icon to the right of your first drop shadow line. Once you've got both your drop shadows in place, click OK. Now let's right-click on the layer we just added drop shadows to and choose Copy Layer Style. And then right-click on the other mountain layer and choose Paste Layer Style. Now our two mountains are starting to look like pieces of layered paper. Let's add some grass on the forefront. Add a layer and make sure it's on top of all your other layers. And we'll use the curvature pen tool so we can make a sort of rolling hills look. Choose a green color to work with for our grassy hills. And start placing anchor points. I like to start outside of my canvas and work my way in. Then I go off the other edge and down around the outside of the canvas on the bottom to complete the shape. You can see here that my Grassy Hills layer is behind the mountains, so I need to move it to the top of my Layers panel. Now we can also add to our drawing using shapes rather than the pen tool. Let's grab the ellipse tool and make a sun. And I'll use the line tool to add some rays to my sun. Just to clean this up a bit, I'll select all of those layers with the sun and the rays and right-click and then merge shapes. Okay, now that we've got some more items in our picture, let's paste that layer style onto our newest layers. You can select both the sun layer and the grassy hill layer, right-click and choose Paste Layer Style. I think our drawing could use some trees, so let's grab the standard pen tool and a darker green color. I'm going to draw a pine tree. It is not going to be perfect, but that's okay. And I need to move this layer behind the grassy hill. Then we'll apply our layer style to the tree layer. Let's duplicate that tree layer by dragging it down to the plus icon at the bottom of the Layers panel, so we have two trees now. And just so they don't look too similar, I'll go to Edit, Flip Horizontal for our duplicate tree. And maybe we can add a different type of tree. Let's grab the curvature pen tool and make a leafy treetop in dark green. And then I'll switch back to the standard pen tool to make a tree trunk. And let's give that a brownish color. Now let's select both of those layers, the tree top and the tree trunk, and right-click and Paste Layer Style. And we'll use our Move tool to move these both over to the left. And here's our fake layered paper art. Some of the shadows in this are a bit too strong. We'd probably want to go back and decrease the opacity on our drop shadows, at least on the sun pieces, to make it look a little more like paper. I'd love to see the fake layered paper art drawings that you create.